Here at Helmuth Ford, we are a small town dealership with no hassle and no pressure.
Schedule your next dental appointment with Dr. Dan Schuster at Oski Dental, 641-673-4845. They're accepting new patients. Oski Dental will file all of your insurance forms for you. They're a Delta dental provider. And Oski Dental is located at 902 South 17th Street in Oskaloosa. That's Oski Dental, 641-673-4845. We make smiles happen at Oski Dental.
Welcome back to the show.
Welcome back to the show.
And now, your hosts of the Card Subject to Change podcast, the For Frequency's Sake Tag Team Champions of the World, the Wizard CZ, and never wrong, Nick Bull.
Hello, one and all, and welcome. And of course, Happy New Year from us here at Card Subject to Change. We are the Card Subject to Change podcast, the podcast by the fan for the fan. Of course, we are powered by Low Pies Pizza, built by Durham Remodeling, colored by Ryan Allison Tattoo, and protected by Jared Zook of Country Financial. Glad to have you all aboard in 2025. This is our first official hello to you in 2025. I know we wish some of you Happy New Year if you caught the kick out, but this is our first broadcast of the 2025 calendar year. And we're kicking it off right here, as we'll get to here in a second. Of course, I am your host, Never Wrong, Nick Bull. I would be remiss if I did not mention my tag team partner and co-host. We are the co-champs of the For Frequency's Sake Network, and we are defending champions. Wink, wink, nod, nod. He is the one. He is the only. He is the Wizard CZ. Wiz, Happy New Year. How you doing, bud?
Happy New Year, Nick. I'm doing great. I'm excited because we are officially the only 7-star podcast in the business right now. And you can tell just by the name, we were in the Tokyo Dome, so we might as well get 8 stars for that.
You know what? You're probably right, and we'll have to get into that a little bit later with our host, and I can't wait to talk to him about all things these couple shows that just happened over the weekend we're going to highlight, but really looking forward to seeing his take on the star ratings. And because you know what, it's a joke here. We joke a lot, and that's the joke in wrestling is, hey, Dave Meltzer throws out like stars like he's feeding birds bread at the park. I mean, he just keeps throwing them out. So is there validity to this? We'll find out. And I can't wait to dig into our guest's head, but go ahead, CZ. Go ahead and continue.
Yeah, I just before we really get into the point of the episode, I want to give a shout out to SCW Pro, who had an amazing show last night. Now, I'm going to say this tongue in cheek. It was the best show of the year so far.
It was. They have an absolute, SCW put on a really good show to kick off 2025 last night. It had been my first time back in a few months, and hey, it was a standing room only crowd. Over 300 people in the Bluegrass Community Center for that show last night, and it did not disappoint. 4 matches on the card, but I'm telling you, it was perfectly slotted, timed, and booked how they did it. 4 very different, unique matches in and of themselves, and a lot of good things coming out of last night. So head on over to our show page. We posted some pics that not only I, but CZ took from the show. Some interesting pairings in the Rumble. A lot of interesting things going on in SCW Pro, and just wanted to give props to them for an excellent show. I mean, hey, I don't think anybody walked out of there disappointed last night, Wiz.
I don't think so either. And I'll give I know I gave an online shout out. I will give an on-air shout out to both 2 good friends of the podcast. Of course, Eric Esnite, current SCW Pro champion, celebrating his 25th birthday, 25th, I believe. Is what he said yesterday. And our great friend and collaborator, one JT Energy, celebrating his 40th, the big 4-0. Happy birthday. I know JT didn't have the best of nights last night, but I'm sure he felt felt energized by doing what he loves, despite not winning the Rumble and despite walking away with a loss to Rip Studwell.
I'll tell you this right now. I'll put over JT. He didn't get the job done last night against Rip Studwell, but we're glad to have him aboard for 2025 with the Cardi award-winning segment of the year that we get from JT. But last night was, I think, the best JT energy has ever looked in his career.
Yes.
He may have hit the big 4-0 like you and I have a few years ago, but new ring gear looked great. He absolutely looked amazing in the ring. His physique has changed, and hats off to JT Energy because I know he's putting the work in. I see the check-ins, and he's an inspiration, man. He is now an inspiration to guys like me, guys like you. He's getting it done, and he may not have got the win last night against Ripped, but I'm telling you, man, JT, you look amazing. Best I've ever seen you look, dude. You look amazing.
And you can just tell he's having the time of his life doing what he absolutely loves.
Yep.
Month in, month out at SCW Pro and around the Midwest. Nick, I am going to let you bring in our guest this week because I know you're excited. I'm excited to have him. I know you're excited to have him on, but tell us who we got covering Tokyo with us today.
If you're a fan of our show, he is a repeat guest because there's probably nobody that I know in my circle of Wrestling Friends Network that really has the knowledge and the know-how of the New Japan Pro Wrestling scene. And I'm not going to put him on the spot. I know he hasn't been watching it as tightly as he has in the past, but his knowledge is far more superior than you and I just plugging in to something for a few minutes. So we wanted to bring an expert on, talk about of course, New Japan's biggest show of the year, Wrestle Kingdom, but that coincided with the show last night that you and I watched after SCW Pro, being Wrestle Dynasty, where all these different promotions, AEW, Ring of Honor, CMLL, New Japan Pro Wrestling, and Stardom all combined stars for a big show. Without further ado, our friend is a contributor to the WrestlingObserverNewsletter.com. He does reviews for AEW Dynamite and AEW pay-per-views for the Wrestling Observer Newsletter. Please welcome the one and only Ryan Howard back to the show. Ryan, how you doing, bud?
What's going on, buddy? How are you? Happy New Year to you guys.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too. And I think a big Happy New Year to wrestling fans. I mean, there's no off season in wrestling, but it kind of kicks into full gear here right away when New Japan has their biggest show of the year, and AEW follows with talent on a show, kind of like a big super card of 5 different promotions.
There's something for everybody. Like, I mean, even if you aren't AEW or New Japan, you got Raw coming up tomorrow, and it's wrestling fans are spoiled right now, man. So it's a good thing.
We're absolutely spoiled. I'm glad you mentioned before we delve into what took place over in Japan the last couple days. You know, how I don't know if you necessarily have to be a WWE fan to realize the broad and the scope of Raw going on to Netflix. And I love how it's being treated internally by WWE. They're treating this like a mega show, which it should be. It's you're debuting somewhere else after 30-some years of being on cable television. But I think that first Raw on Netflix is going to grab a lot of just innocent bystanders just because of the Netflix thing. I mean, is this bigger than we're building it to be, this Raw on Netflix, this first one? Now we know that The Rock is going to be there as well.
I think so. I mean, you turn on Netflix, even if you aren't a wrestling fan, the home screen, it promotes WWE. So this is going to get more eyes on a show that would normally, they've been getting like 1.7 million on USA. I mean, who knows what ratings are anymore, because with streaming services, you really don't know. Because same with AEW and Max, that whole talk probably goes out the window, and which is probably a good thing because that's what everybody talks about is ratings. But
right,
people are locked in on deals. That's all that matters. They're going to be on TV for years to come. And this is going to get a lot of eyes, Raw is, and you get The Rock announcing beforehand. So that there's not a will he, won't he show up, you know he's going to be there, so that'll get more eyes on the product as well. So
Correct. I mean, I made the argument that 2024 may have been the best year in wrestling history, just with the popularity of it and just pop culture again, the numbers, the sellouts, the shows. I mean, I don't know what they're expecting for numbers, but I anticipate more people probably have Netflix than they do Peacock, right?
yeah,
I mean,
I would assume, right?
Is that wrong to assume that? I mean, Netflix kind of goes hand in hand with streaming. They're kind of the head of the streaming, phenomenon. So I would think more people have Netflix, more people are going to see that's going on and might tune in. So I love how they've handled it and booked this thing to the gills.
Yes.
Rightfully so, too. I mean, that's a loaded card. That's a pay-per-view or premium live event quality card. And so you got Rhea versus Liv. I think you got Rollins and Punk main eventing is perfect. And then I would assume you start with Roman and Solo.
Roman and Solo, and The Rock is going to be there. What's Paul Heyman going to do? There's a lot going on. So,
like John Cena is going to be there, I believe. Yeah. So
correct. Yep, you're absolutely right.
Farewell starts tomorrow night.
And then like the rumor is like it's him and Cody at Mania, or that's what I've read, and it's like that's interesting, but it's like that's going to be seen as last Mania, so that's an interesting if they decide to go that way. That's what at least was the rumor.
I've seen that. I've also seen possibly Gunther Cena, a Gunther Goldberg, and I guess the popular one now is a Gunther Rollins. So I'm intrigued by that. I like to see how we get there and how that goes off. I think that would be a brilliant match. But
and speaking of Rollins, like Becky's expected back too. So I mean that's another big name.
Exactly. And Charlotte Flair is supposed to be coming back here anytime. So there's the stars are kind of aligning for wrestling fans all over the world. I mean, there's something to watch everywhere. And I think having a viable, a competitor like AEW just makes things better. Like we got options. There's wrestling on all the time now. They're going to force each other's shows to be better because they want to be the best. Competition is great. So we're the winners here. Let's watch these. Let's just sit back and watch these two tear each other apart and just enjoy the rewards, right?
Yes.
Fine by me.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's get into it. I'm just going to ask your overall thoughts as we kick things off. We'll talk about matches in a minute, but you're the expert here, Ryan. What were your thoughts coming out of this weekend between Wrestle Kingdom and Wrestle Dynasty?
New Japan needs new stars. Like they got clobbered last year. Like the last time I was on with you guys, Will Ospreay, Jay White, Okada, Tama Tonga, Tangaloa, they were all still there. And that's just like in a couple months. Yeah, a couple months, they're all gone.
Yep.
So now you have to rebuild. And there's guys like Tetsuya Naito, whose body's breaking down. You got Hiroshi Tanahashi, who this is his final year, and he's calling it at next year's Tokyo Dome. That's it. So you got to really rely on these young guys, and they need to do it. Like they need to pull the trigger on guys like Shota Umino, who main evented Wrestle Kingdom. But the story they told was that he keeps failing and failing and failing. And what did he do at the main event of Wrestle Kingdom? He failed again. So it's only so many times you can fail, and then you're sacrificing like the credibility. It's like
going to be comparable to Cody's story when Cody lost to Roman the first time.
I could see that. I mean, the good thing is that's like I was waiting for. I don't think he was going to win against Sabre, but Red Shoes, the referee, is his father, and it would be very fitting for him to count the 3 whenever his son. He's going to win the title. It's just a matter of when, because you could tell by the way it's booked. He's New Japan's guy.
Yeah,
I would go with Yota Tsuji because I think he has the more complete package and overall look, and I like his matches more. However, I think he's destined almost to be a level below Umino maybe. But they just need to get going on the young guys. This needs to be the year where, I mean, if Takeshita sticks around New Japan, Like, he apparently signed a 1-year contract with New Japan. In addition to AEW, if they can make him into world title contention, that's a star that AEW can have, and also New Japan can have at the same time. So
You've got Nick over there drooling.
I do. He's my favorite guy to watch in AEW.
Oh, yeah.
Outside of tag
He's the
team
best.
stuff, he's my favorite guy. Like, he just, to me, he's not Lex Luthor. You know, he is the total package for a dominant heel that can wrestle.
Mm-hmm.
He's not a great talker, but he doesn't need to be, because he's got one of the best talkers next to him. All he has to do is just go in the ring and do his thing. You know, eventually he's going to have to cut promos at some point, but
yeah.
I love how he's developed, and I think he's future world champion in either New Japan or AEW in the next year and a half, tops.
Yeah, I agree.
I really do. One of those places I do.
He had the best back-to-back weekend, or the Wrestle Kingdom and Wrestle Dynasty. I mean, his match with Shingo at Wrestle Kingdom was arguably the best on the card, even though it only went like 11 or 12 minutes. It should have gone longer. We can get into that. That's fine. But then his match with Ishii, if it wasn't for Kenny Omega versus Gabe Kidd, that would have been the match of the night. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, he